Welcome to episode 11 of the Splitfire Gaming Podcast. There's been a tiny, unnoticeable gap between the last episode with Mini Apothecary, and since then he's gone up to something like 1,400 subscribers. So I'll take all the credit for that. We have our first recurring guest, Allan. Welcome back.
Hi everyone, it's Allan.
What did you do with the massive amount of cash that I gave you to come back then?
I used it and bought lots of gems and materials on what is it, like Clash of Kings or something like that.
You mean that brings me to my next topic. Why not subscribe to Raid Shadow? No,
Shadow Legends, that's it.
Shadow Legends, yeah.
I used it all on that.
You know they haven't rang back.
No?
Or at all. No.
Oh.
I keep ringing them and no. I thought I'd sell out by now, but it's not happened.
Not even with your hundreds of Twitter followers.
Oh, well, you know, I am a bit of a celebrity now with 325 subscribers. It's not a subscriber, it's a follower.
Yeah.
What are you on now, just to compete here?
Well, in regards to Twitter...
Yeah, Twitter, not YouTube. Let's clarify this.
Twitter, I hate Twitter. But I am on 17. However,
17.
However, I hardly ever use Twitter. I can't get my head around it. However, on YouTube, I'm on 306.
We are not talking about YouTube.
306 subscribers on my YouTube channel, so I'm quite chuffed about that. Thank you, everyone who supports Toy Soldier Tales. Couldn't do it without you.
Well, since I haven't actually given you permission to promote your stuff on my stuff yet, I'm going to edit that out. So unsubscribe from Toy Soldier Tales. So, yeah, we now apparently have a rivalry since you trash-talked me in your last battle report.
I wouldn't say it was trash-talking. I think it was more along the lines of this guy plays high elves competitively.
This is such a slur, right? Yes, I have fielded competitive high elf lists. I also play non-competitive high elf lists. I only use the competitive ones either with permission or in a tournament setting.
So you do play high elves competitively now and again?
Occasionally, it has been known. But on my desk in front of me is a dragon that I'm using in a battle where I'm using a prince on a star dragon, which is pretty uncompetitive, I would say.
That is, but you're having a specific dragon off, aren't you?
Well, yes, that was the idea behind it.
It's like, let's have a dragon battle, and then you rock up with 38 white lions.
And the Banner of the World Dragon, so that counts, does it?
Banner of the World Dragon makes all dragons stubborn.
It does. So there is a fluff reason for me to take it. Not that I'm going to, allegedly. But the guy I'm playing, he will have a Dragonoff. I've dropped that. I'm taking a Manticore.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't realise that it was going to be High Elves versus Dark Elves when you first told me. But I suppose he does have weaker dragons, let's say, yeah?
And cheaper. Let's not forget the cheapness. I don't mind. I'm actually quite looking forward to it.
It also means that you're painting a new model, for your collection, yeah?
Yeah, I've had to strip the prints. You know, when you, not that I'm great at it, but you know when you noticeably improve at painting and you go back to what you did 2 years ago, right? That looks rubbish. So now everything's had to go back into the bio strip. Please sponsor me, bio strip. But the dragon's all right.
Well, I tell you,
last one turn before I have to take them off. But, yeah.
I tell you, I think you were the one who told me about BioStrip, and I have used it regularly since.
It's great. However, do not put in Alariel and then forget about her, because it destroys the fine cast, and you end up having to buy another one. I hear.
I made that mistake too. I put in some fine cast models and They didn't come out too well.
That did not improve my impression of Finecast. What do I normally? I haven't done this for ages. What do I normally do? I normally do a little bit of an intro. So what have I written down here? Oh yeah, I painted 2,500 points of high elves. They are now finished. My tournament list is done. Pictures on Instagram and stuff down below.
They look great.
I am quite impressed. Please,
you impressed myself.
yeah. They're great if I do say so myself.
I impressed myself.
It's like I didn't think it was a pipe dream when I started, thinking I'll do this in 6 months. But I'm actually impressed I've gone through with something rather than how they look. That's how easy it is. Spreadsheets, that's how to do it. Keeps you interested.
I have no idea what you mean.
Spreadsheets is Paint Slam, it's called. You just keep a spreadsheet record of everything you paint in a year. And total, so it's like a unit of 18 archers, 18, and then it's a cumulative total. So you do 10 silver helms, then you've done 28 models. So there's a cumulative total of everything you've done. So there's like some sense of you're achieving something. Worked for me anyway.
Well, if it works for you, great. Yeah, I spend enough time in Excel at work.
Maybe not. Maybe you need a different system, tally sticks or something. What else we got here? Crusade brackets losses 1,000 suns. Oh yeah, we've picked up a crusade in Warhammer 40,000, but because I've switched from knights, which are easy, to 1,000 suns, which are a bit more nuanced, I just keep losing. So,
1 second. How come you played knights then?
I love knights. I think the models are great.
And there's only like 3.5.
Yeah, that's right. You can deploy in 1 second. There's not just putting things into cases and stuff. There's a box with magnets on the floor. There you go. 3 knights done. What else have I got here? Toughness 5 orcs ? Is there enough conversation around that, or shall I skip it?
Well, for someone who doesn't play 40k, like I watch it. I paint the models every now and again. So can I talk about my Instagram now or not?
Permission granted. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So on my Instagram, you might see that I've been painting some Space Marine Terminators of my own chapter, and I'm enjoying painting them. And I've also got a 40k orc army, and I was just like, I don't think I'm ever going to get these out. I'm never going to play with them. Not that I'm interested in the rules or anything. But when it came out, it was like, toughness 5 orcs. I was just like, nah, okay. They're toughness 5, but they also have no armor save. So, nah. It seems to have caused quite a ruckus.
Yeah, it's everyone's now out in arms because bolters are now learning on 5s, I think. Yeah. Not interested. It'll all get revamped when they redo the books anyway.
Yeah, probably. Right.
Yeah, next, cross that out. I managed to speak to Steve from Mini Wargaming.
Did you?
Well, not really. He was live streaming, and I messaged him as myself as Splitfire, and I don't know whether it's either stalking or it's just showing an interest, because when he came on the next time, I just noticed it as well, and he said, send me the link for your channel and I'll have a look at it and I'll get back to you. And that's what I would say to get someone off my back. So I don't think he'll come on, but I've spoken to. You're not the only tabletop wargaming presenter that I've spoken to in some fashion. So,
well, I feel honoured. I tell you what, though, I'm not a celebrity when you compare me to Steve or the Miniatures Apothecary who you had on previously. Like when I heard that he was coming on your channel, I was just like, wow, I'm definitely listening to that. So,
well, me and him are like that, and that's me on top.
For those who can't see, you can't
I'm
visualize.
crossing my fingers. That's what I do.
You went like that. I'm like, but no, like I thought it was really interesting listening to that one. So
It was sort of a counterpoint to the dislikes I did about like episode 3, I think. So it's just nice to have something of likes and a bit uplifting. And then I didn't do one for a month, so who
I
knows?
wonder what he's done with the cash that you gave him.
He's nice though. He wouldn't want cash.
No,
So
he did want to like buy some more gems on Raid
no,
Shadow.
no, he wouldn't have done it for like a 1 month free pass to Raid Shadow Legends or whatever the trash that people advertise. I've written here Battlefleet Kothique, which I think was a joke I made and was very proud of and nobody laughed at. So I'm going to bring it up here.
What's the joke?
Well, I've come up with a new sea-based fantasy game called Battlefleet Kothique. Sort of play on Battlefleet Gothic.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
No, right. We'll move on.
I actually like Battlefleet Gothic. Just no one ever played it.
I like Battlefleet Gothic, except you can't, unless you want to sell a kidney, you can't actually get the miniatures anymore.
Yeah, I had a Necron fleet a long time ago, which I sold to pay rent.
I had I spent £200 on Bretonians in about 2003, and I think I gave them to someone in return for, I think it was a Tyrannofex and a Trigon. And I'm looking now and thinking, I shafted myself there.
Oh no.
They're worth their weight in saffron.
Oh no. Never mind.
Well, the problem with that was I bought £200 worth of Bretonians. I built them all. I undercoated them. I started painting the knights and thought, I hate this. I can't bear to paint horses and knights. And then they went in the cupboard for 10 years and then were given away.
No, fair enough.
And there's a tragedy. Anyway, you are the host, presenter, executive producer of Toy Soldier Tales, as anyone who watched the previous episode you were on. You are back filming now. You've got 2 battle reports up very recently. How's that going?
Yeah, what is it? Host, producer, editor,
Right,
director.
Best boy, key grip.
He's like everything. Yeah, it's really good to be back filming. What was it? So we were allowed to go around other people's houses again. And that day, like that evening on the Monday, I went round to Graham's. It's like, record a battle report and get something.
You tell him, but just appear on the front door. So let me in.
We'd arranged it because even with lockdown, I haven't actually painted that many armies, and I was like, no one wants to see my Nurgle demons again on the channel, and I only have like one painted 2,500 point Warriors of Chaos army, which has a Nurgle demon printed, which is 500 points. I haven't painted 500 points of other units to replace that, so I was like, no one wants to see that. And then I was like, no one wants to see my high elves again. So it was like,
well, I do.
yeah, but like they've been on a lot, and so I was like, I've used Khorne demons on the channel before. I've used Nurgle demons. I've got a friend who's painting up a Tzeentch demon army for the channel, and I was like, oh, Graham, you've got like Slaanesh demons. Can I borrow them? And we'll have a game. And he was like, yeah, sure. So that was really good for filming because all I needed to take was like a backpack of like dice and rule books and like a camera.
I think you've cracked this because it's not your army and it's not your property you're filming in. So all the ancillary expenses are being borne by somebody else.
I know. It was very, very kind of very, very generous of him. And then when we were like, "Oh, let's play another game," and get some more, another video on the channel, he was like, "I want to use my high elves," and I think it was because I don't want to give any spoilers away, but I think he wanted to beat me, and so I was like,
give spoilers away, but
no, I haven't given a spoiler. I'm just saying he wanted to beat me, so he's he's taking Isles, and I was like, okay, what have you got? Because it's only been a week, and I'm still in the same situation as I was last week, So what have you got? And he was like, oh, how about Skaven? Do you want to have a go with Skaven? I was like, yeah, they haven't been on the channel yet, And I think, the main reason for trying out the different armies is to keep the varied content, and, people just don't want to see the same thing over and over again. And so it was, it's very nice of Graham to, to let me borrow his armies. And if you compare me to some of these other channels, like Tabletop, mini wargaming or Tabletop Tactics, some of like the biggest out there.
We're not allowed now. I know we did before. We're not allowed to have a go at mini wargaming on the off chance that Steve listens to this and agrees to come on.
I wasn't going to have a go. I was just saying, it's their like full-time job to paint armies, produce battle reports, and it's obviously not mine. I have to pay rent.
Not yet.
No, not yet. Maybe one day. If I get your Twitter following, then maybe. But it's like I need. That's why I've got like my friend painting up a new army for the channel. And it's why I'm painting like an ogre army on the side, and yeah, it's just it's full time. It's full time just trying to get different armies and different things on the channel, because I refuse to put unpainted armies on the channel. That's fine for some people, and there's some channels out there that produce really good content. But for me, it's just like, no, I want to make sure everything's painted, everything's based, everything's in movement trays, and then we can do that. So it does mean that there's a lot of time spent off camera trying to get stuff ready. But I enjoy it. So hopefully we'll get some more battle reports recorded and with some new players and get more content out there. But the response and support has been fantastic from the community. Got some guys from Russia like commenting in Russian, and I'm having to copy and paste it into like Google Translate to see what they're saying, which is quite funny. But yeah, it's nice.
You've been influenced by Russian bots, is that?
When I translated it in Google Translate, it said the message was super protein receipt for Sunesh, my compliments. Like, what's the
any sleeper agents have just been activated by that code word?
Super protein receipt. I'm sure that's not right, but
I get it. I understand. Is that a bit of a hint about what might be coming up then? Zinj demons and ogres.
Yeah, so ogres, I need to finish painting how many? Maybe 9 more models, and then that army's done. But the good thing about that, all the other models I've done before it, all their movement trays have been based and textured and done. So they're all like 100%, and then got like 9 more models to paint for that, but they just happen to be very large models because they're ogres, so it's like
9 models. That's about a third of the army, though.
Yeah, but one of them's like an iron blaster cannon, which has got like a lot of stuff on it and a lot of stuff going on. It's not like, I'm painting 9 elf spearman or whatever. It's like it's like
White
a
lions.
big cannon. Yeah, the 9 white lions or whatever. So it's like a big model. There's a lot going on them. But yeah, my friend wanted an army. Yeah, the guy who's painting the Zinch demons for me. We're going to be going to Triple Crown in August, and
That's funny because so am I.
I know. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. And so there's a group of us going, and so he wanted an army. None of it's like his models. So a lot of the models have been like donated to him from a group of us.
Not
And
by
he
Graham.
No.
Not leasing him for some more stuff.
No. So he was like, "Oh, I want an army that no one sees. I want an army that can handle Alariel and the White Lion Horde and something that's a painting challenge." So I was like, "I want 2,500 points of Zinch Demons on the channel. Here's the list. Yeah, do you fancy painting this?" And he's like, "Yeah, actually, I do fancy painting that because that's not like an army that you'd usually see." So I sent him like half the models, and his brother gave him the other half of the models. So there he is. He's with his 2,500 points each army that he's going to be building and painting. And if it's not on the channel before Triple Crown, you'll see it at Triple Crown. So
Pretty good.
yeah.
Well, that's the development of your channel. I have decided to professionalize my channel and stop being a sort of amateur long form interviewer and become more of a professional journalist who just goes for inane gotcha questions style of interview.
No.
So here we go, right? So, Alan, in the back rep with Graham, you used the previous edition's terror rules when the Bretonians tried to charge the Keeper of Secrets. Are you going to resign over this?
No, yeah. So I apologized after the making of the game. Someone
Did you
else.
apologise to enough people though?
Yeah, I'll do it now. I'll do it now to your 300 followers. I'll say, I'm sorry for getting the rules wrong. And yeah, we got the rules wrong. Hold my hand up. Fair enough. I spoke to someone in the comments, like mentioned it, and I was just like, yeah, that, but that's what my only defense, which isn't really a defense, is I haven't played in a long time. I haven't played in such a long time, and
but also
like,
questing nights get shields, and you didn't counter that in. I think for that Wrath of Khorne thing.
I know, and
so do you think that's acceptable?
This is the thing, right? No, it's fine. Yeah, I think God, if you've watched the Skaven one, there's even more things we got wrong in that. But my thing is,
I'm getting onto that.
You're getting onto that, yeah. But no, the Brett one, I trust the other person, who's playing their army, to tell me what stuff's got and what hasn't, and that's that. And I'm not blaming Graham, but it's like there's two people playing the game. It's not just one person. So, in regards to the Bretts, which I'd only be really upset about it if it changed the outcome of the game. Yeah, I think because it didn't, then I'm not too upset about it. I just hope people still enjoyed the material, and we got those two things wrong, and hopefully we'll nip them in the bud and get.
But in that episode, you say that Malekith is the true Phoenix or Eternity King. How can you justify spreading fake news in the middle of a global pandemic?
I think it was published. It was published in
No.
I'm pretty. I've got the book on my shelf.
Right.
I can go get it.
Let me address this. Right. The film Highlander 2 was released, but it isn't canon because it trashes the myth, everything that Highlander 1 did, right? So in the same way, just because something was published doesn't mean it's correct or right.
But the thing is, they came out and said after Highlander 2, right, that it wasn't canon or something, yeah?
Yeah,
Didn't they do Highlander Endgame or something?
They did. They totally ignored it with Highlander 2.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine, and when Workshop released Storm of Chaos, they said afterwards, oh yeah, that's not canon. That had never happened. Yeah. And they went on to End Times. But seeing as Age of Sigmar is still going, the End Times happened. And they haven't since said that that's not canon. It's not like Disney and Star Wars, where Disney have come out and said all the Star Wars books are no longer canon.
Well, I've made that decision for them.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
And with my might of 300 plus Twitter followers, they better listen.
Yeah, you go take on that Age of Sigmar community.
Don't get me started on the amount of times I've been snubbed by the Hobby Roundup.
Oh man, but no, I know every time I say it, it's going to trigger you. I know every time I say it.
Oh, come on. It's total horseshit.
What? Well, I don't, I think I'm going to upset you.
It doesn't make any sense.
I'm going to upset you.
Makes no sense whatsoever.
I'd rather have Malekith leading it than Tyrion.
If he'd just stayed in that flame one more second, everything would have been fine. And the Syrian's just fine with a succession of imposters with magic protection taking the kingship, even though he's supposed to have picked.
I can't believe that's the thing you're upset about the most. Or is this your next question? Because I think we also said on the episode that the Lady of the Lake was an elf god.
Oh yeah. Well, that was always sort of hinted at.
No, come on, that's worse. That's
not worse. They're an irrelevant minor human faction.
Minor human faction.
Who cares who they're worshipping?
No, but it was just like, it's just, I think that's more of a kick in the teeth than anything, because it's like...
But that's the army where they hadn't given them a new book since 6th edition. So kicking Bretonnian players isn't really... They haven't got a problem with that, really.
No, I think they have to, right? It's what I can imagine is, with this old world tease releases that Games Workshop did, and then they teased the Bretonnian map, didn't they? With all the new coat of arms and stuff.
And they've said which king it is as well. It's
Slayer. I wouldn't be surprised that what Games Workshop will do to kick him in the teeth, kick Bretonnian players in the teeth, is they'll release them last.
Well, just for say, game's finished.
No, what they'll do is they'll do every other army book, if they do army books or whatever, right? And that will take maybe 3 years, and then they'll release edition 1 or whatever they're going to call it of Bretonnians, and then they'll update the core rule book to edition 2, and then Bretonnians will be the last ones to get updated again.
And the rules are totally incompatible with the next edition.
And they'll do something like that.
You heard it here first. I'm not being serious about the hard-hitting journalism on the errors.
Oh no, I'm enjoying it. I quite liked it, but the Malekith thing,
I'm being deadly serious about that.
I know you're being deadly serious about that, but I think Graham and I both knew that would get a rise. Out of some people.
Well, if you notice how many boarded up windows I've got in my house after watching it, then that's various objects went through them. So, no, very good. Well,
is that nothing for is that it in regards to the hard hitting questions?
Let's have a look. Oh, I had another one. How do you account for the fact that when you counted up ranks with a Storm Vermin at on the second game you've just released, you said they had 3 ranks, and in fact they only had 2.
Did you not include the bell in your calculation?
Why are you attacking the press in this way? Are you against freedom of the press?
No, I think again, like it on the first turn when the elves charged, it doesn't really matter because they lost not the elves, the storm vermin lost combat, they're unbreakable, right? So it don't really matter.
Spoilers.
And then spoilers. And then in the next round, a unit of whatever they call clan rats charged them in the flank. And there's at least 3 ranks there, yeah. So either way, 3 ranks.
Well, what was established is you hate the free press, so that's how that works.
Oh man, yeah, pretty much.
That was all. That was the professional section of this. I don't think I'll keep doing that. I didn't enjoy being a press hound.
Am I going to resign from my own channel?
Yeah, for your channel. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry guys, I got some rules wrong in this Warhammer game, and therefore will never release a battle report ever again.
You need to make a cringing, empty, nonsensical public apology. It means nothing. Anyway,
yeah. I made a serious lack in judgment.
Well, you need to express regret, which isn't an apology. It means nothing. I express regret that people were offended by my actions.
I regret that people caught me.
Yeah. Well, you. Oh, that's what I was going to mention. Did you see that scandal about the guy who cheated? What's he called? TJ something or other. He's like a big time 40k player, podcast host or something like that. And they caught him on camera at some televised tournament, blatantly cheating.
Really?
Yeah, and some guy on Twitter caught it and said, "Oh, at these times, I think he's doing something." What he was doing is like fast dice rolling, and then applying rules that didn't make sense. So, the clip I saw, he was like saying, "Hit on twos, rolled really quickly, picked everything up, and then said like plague weapon, re-roll." But it wasn't a plague weapon, and then just said, "Right, there's 5 wounds," when in fact it was 4. You're on telly. If you're gonna cheat, which I strongly suggest you don't have it broadcast to a lot of interested people.
I think when I play in tournaments, then I play a lot slower. I like to make sure everything's correct, all the rules are right, because it just makes the game fair, yeah. But so he's got no excuse, right?
No.
When you go into a tournament, you should know what your stuff does, and the other person is trusting you in that, and you're giving up. I don't know who this guy is, but when you go to a tournament, you should know what your stuff does inside and out, and so the other person shouldn't have to keep questioning you, because you should know and you should be truthful and honest in what your stuff does. And it's kind of sad, but going back to like filming the battle reports, when you film the battle reports, one, you're playing with one hand, right? Because one hand's like holding the camera, and you're trying to make the game just fast paced, and it's just like let's go, let's play fast, let's keep the action and entertainment up, and you can't keep checking the book or you're using an army that you've never played before, which is what I've done on the last 2.
Or both, as the case may be.
Yeah, so it's a lot more difficult when you're doing the battle reports.
I wasn't morally comparing you with a blatant cheater.
No,
that may have come off a bit wrong.
No, I'm not. It's I'm saying he's I don't know who he is. I don't know what. I don't know anything. I haven't heard anything about that until you said it. But in tournaments which I've been to a lot of, you put a lot of trust and faith in the person you're playing against, that they know what their army does. Yeah, and I'm not going to sit there and question everything that they do and tell me to give them the book. Games Workshop release an errata every week, whatever it is for armies, and there's no way that you're going to be able to keep up to date with what your army does and what every other army does. So you just have to put a bit of trust. Yeah,
it just looked like he was barracking them. It was fast play. So like before you've even had a chance to think, Is that right? He's already picked up the dice, re-rolled it, and told you there's 5 wounds. So, yeah, blatant cheat.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I've had people play like that with me in the past, and I just say, right, dude, slow down.
yeah,
Slow down, you know, I
I need to
can't
see what
see
you're
what
doing.
you're rolling, yeah. It's some people don't play this game to make friends.
Haven't you been accused of that?
I have. Yeah. I always try and help people out after I've destroyed them.
Well, yeah, as I know from direct experience. Right. So our topic for today is very similar to our topic from last time. Whereas last time we had a rambling 2-hour chat about general stuff that we liked about fantasy. We've got specific. The last one was chaos, and this is order. So this is the top 5 specific things about fantasy that we like. So this is
All right.
more high elfy versus your chaos demons version of the last one. Do you want to start, or shall I?
Let's go with yourself.
Oh, well, let's mix it up. It's normally the guest that goes first. But anyway, number 1 is the War of the Beard.
Yeah, Mr. High Elf. War of the Beard's a classic.
Well, you know, I'm probably going to prove my ignorance here. In Tolkien's stuff, which this is all obviously ripped off of in one way or the other, the elves and the dwarfs don't get on, as I understand it. But in the film, anyway, which is the original work, not the novelization that Tolkien did, they don't really explain why, and I'm not really inclined to look into it. So there's my ignorance explained. But the War of the Beard is just such a great explanation of why the elves and the dwarves hate each other, and how they expended essentially their entire civilizations to mutually assured destruction based on basically nothing. It was a
Still done
mild.
by the the Eternity King wants it. It was all done by him.
Let me just edit this out and try that take again. But it was set up by Malekith,
The Eternity King.
no, no, he had his chance and the flame incinerated him. So no kingship for him. In fact,
Yeah.
he had to set up his own kingdom to become king. He had to set his own little club up that he can be in charge of. Anyway, so yeah, elves and dwarves have a good previous to this have a good relationship where they're trading and allies and helping each other out and whatever. And that's true. You don't even know
No, they do. I was just going to tell you where it comes from in Lord of the Rings, based upon the films.
Oh,
So
go on.
in the films, have you watched the Hobbit films?
Yes.
So the Hobbit films happen prior to the Lord of the Rings film in terms of chronologically, and the elves and the dwarves traded and stuff, as given with the Mines of Moria and the Elven Gate to get into the Mines of Moria, and also the woodland elves and the dwarves of the Lonely Mountain. But when the Lonely Mountain was under attack from Smaug, the elves told him to fuck off. We're not helping you. So
Yeah, that's a rubbish explanation. That's naff compared to the War of the Beard.
it's not War of the Beard, but it was it's something along those lines. Yeah, the elves didn't help the dwarves when the dwarves needed help.
Boring.
So the dwarves are like, up you elves.
Yeah. Tolkien dropped the ball on that one.
I don't think it's Tolkien. I think it's more the people who produced the films.
That wasn't the only issue with those series of films. For my review channel, go to Splitfire Filming. So yeah, the elves and the dwarves are getting on. Malekith, after being kicked out of Ulthuan, as he deserves, he decides to make some mischief by dressing up as high elves and attacking dwarf trade caravans. So the dwarf king sends an embassy to Calador II, who's the Phoenix King at the time, who's very misunderstood, saying what's going on with these caravans? Why are you attacking these caravans? And then it keeps happening, and he demands compensation for it, compensation for these trade caravans that have been attacked and destroyed. And Calidor, in a diplomatic masterstroke, says the Phoenix King doesn't answer demands; he grants pleas. And then he has the ambassador's beard shaved off, which diplomatically is apparently a bit of a problem for dwarfs. I don't understand the problem. I think I think that was quite a just response to such outrageous demands from a dwarf to the Phoenix King. But apparently that's not what the dwarfs thought. That's some massive insult in dwarf culture. Whatever. And then the dwarf king declares this huge war of vengeance, that they call it, on the innocent high elves. They start besieging all the colonies in the old world. Essentially, it's this apocalyptic confrontation, because this is sort of Ulthuan's armies at its best, because Calidor is the son of Calidor the First, who's beaten Malekith out of Ulthuan. So these veteran armies that are just completely ground into dust, fighting the dwarfs in the old world. And I think it ends with what's supposed to be a huge suicidal final siege of the dwarven. I'm not sure if it's the capital, but it's this huge hold. Calidor gets killed by the dwarf king himself. Calidor previously had killed the dwarf king's son, I think. Everybody dies. The whole armies get destroyed. The civilizations have spent loads of money, resources, manpower on trying to win this unwinnable war. And then when Calidor's killed, the next Phoenix King says, "We're not wasting our time with this." Recalls the armies, because then there's a massive dark elf invasion. But I just think there's an explanation for why they hate each other. It's because they're still, if you have a row with like a partner or something, and now they're just over this sort of, we're not speaking to each other, but we're like, your keys are there, or don't forget you've got that appointment later on. They're at that level of, after thousands of years, they're still like not over it. And it sort of impacts everything, that the dwarves don't trust the high elves don't trust the dwarves, the empire's stuck in the middle. So it sort of shapes everything that happens afterwards. And I just think as a significant event in the old world, it's really good. It's really well done.
Yeah, because you had these like two big superpowers that have, there hasn't. I think around about this time there hasn't been any like large chaos incursion or anything like that, and they literally, they're two superpowers that go to war. They grind each other down, like you said, and then after that, the elves are always on the back foot in terms of their colonies, for the next God knows how long, and then the dwarves are also, they can't keep a hold of all their all their keeps and everything, which eventually get swallowed up by orcs and goblins and Skavens. So
I think just as they're declaring victory at this, it's where the Skaven start bursting into their holds and stuff. So well, we've got no one to defend them. So it's the same happens to Ulthuan when they get invaded. Fortunately, the armies that come back and the generals, they're all sort of like well experienced, because they've survived this horrific war. So Ulthuan's not completely undefended, but it's like, it sort of marks the decline of the professional high elf army, and then later on they have to depend on the citizen levy. But this is sort of where the peak army is destroyed, and they've got nothing. They've got to build it back up from very little.
Yeah, it's a very good. It's one of the best wars that's been accounted, in the history of Warhammer. There's obviously several, but that's got to be one of the best ones. Yeah, so I do agree. That's a good one, especially for such a high elf fan such as yourself.
Everyone starts to rub it in and say, "Oh, they stole the dwarves took the Phoenix King's crown." No, Well, as Caradriel says, I'd rather lose the crown than lose the kingdom. Make me another one.
Yeah.
So he knew when to cut his not losses, but not. He knew when to cut his not wins. To put that in a diplomatic term.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. Yeah, good one. Good one. I can't argue with that one. There was a I think it was 6th edition Dwarf Army book where you had Alfric Runickson or something. He was like one of the dwarf kings. You know, the model everyone eventually came to know as Dwarf Lord on Shield Bearers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, he was the guy on Shield Bearers with like the double-headed axe, and he had like the wings on his helmet. Yeah, he was actually a named character, and you know, I don't want to butcher it. And he had a special army, so if you took him, you couldn't take black powder weapons. Yeah, and it was essentially like a War of the Beard army because
Oh right.
you couldn't. They didn't supposedly they didn't have like cannons or thunderers or flame cannons or anything like that. You could only take crossbows, bolt throwers, and good throwers, and it was like a War of the Beard army. It was like quite cool.
I'm
But
sure.
they did away with that. Yeah.
I'm sure Gavin, who was on for the Emperor versus the Emperor one, he mentioned that I think White Dwarf published rules for like War of the Beard, dwarves army versus High Elf army rather than militia. And I've never seen it, but that would be really interesting if they could find something to do with that, because it's not the citizen levy, it's the proper professional military that they don't really have much of anymore.
But yeah, I think it'd be quite cool to do like a whole War of the Beard kind of army / game. So, but dwarf models are really hard to come by these days. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with the end, but you know, you've got to accept some things you don't like.
Yeah, well, never mind. Poor Calidor, eh?
He did nothing wrong.
He did nothing wrong. No. That's a massive insult.
Calidor II did nothing wrong. How is he to know?
Calidor II did nothing wrong. Prove me wrong.
It's it. Fact. You can't. So that's your number one. Not in any particular order.
It's not in any particular order.
It's not. No, it's in no particular order.
And I've got a mix between game and lore, with an ORE rather than an AW. So actually, there is a number one, but I'll save this to the end. Yeah. The you know what I really like is the map.
Right.
The old world map is awesome. Like, I absolutely love it. I love all the attention to detail. I love the fact that they've come up with history and lore for every single mark on the map. I know it's like 20 years in development, but I love how, they've got the different factions spread across the map. Yeah, it's based on Earth, but I think it's just, they've taken that inspiration, they've taken it one step further. There's such a rich history. There's all these history on all these different kingdoms and empires, rise and falls of kings, queens, gods, deities. And I just think you can just look at the map and go, "Oh, what's that? What's that? Oh, and then all of a sudden you just uncovering a rich tapestry of history." And I think it's fantastic. And every time I read an army book or I read one of the Warhammer novels or anything, I'm always going back to the maps and going, so where are they now? Where are they now? Oh, right, they're here. Oh, yeah, this makes sense. Oh, that's cool. And I just think it's brilliant. And it kind of leads on to my next one, which I won't start on. But when you think about some of these wars that happen between the war, like, for example, the War of the Beard, and you think about the dwarves had to traverse that amount of space to get to Ulthuan, or or the other way around. It's just like it just makes you think about the vast distances that these armies and characters and people are having to travel, and I think it's amazing. I just think it's great. I love it.
Have you seen in Bugman's Bar? There's that massive. I think it's still there. There's the massive reproduction of the Warhammer World map.
Yes.
I would like if you're listening, whoever runs Warhammer World, Duncan Rhodes, if you ever get rid of that for whatever nonsense AOS has instead of that, I'll buy that off you because I want that for my wall.
But it's on my list of top 5 things.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean I can't agree with your choices.
No, but that would be so good. Can you imagine producing battle reports and having that on the wall behind you? How cool would that be? But I'm just looking at it now. I've got it on my screen, looking at it, and I'm just like, it's just brilliant. I can't pick fault with it.
If you if you remember particularly like the 4th to 6th edition books, they would only have a map of like the area of the army you were collecting. So it was quite interesting because I could never place places like Estalia and Talia. And when you actually see it in the map, like, oh, that's where that is. That's south of the Empire. Like, I had a real problem with where is the Empire? How big is it in relation to everything that's surrounding it? And when you see the map, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense because that's where that battles happens. There's Britonia. There's the border there, and that's where the chaos comes. So yeah, that is a massive problem. And there's Norska, so that's where they all come in there. So I fully agree. I really like looking at the map just from that's there, that's what's placed there. And if you look across the top, you can walk from Kislev all the way across the top into Nagaroth. Because it's not like...
Theoretically, you can.
Well,
I wouldn't.
Yeah. If you had a one-up ward save, you could do it. But there's also bits of the map that they're not explained or explored. Is it like you're only dimly aware of Cathay and Nippon and the Kingdom of Ind?
Hinterland of Kurish. Like, I'm probably saying that wrong. Or Kurish. Like, they haven't. Loads of places. But I kind of like the idea. If Warhammer was to keep going, I would have loved for them to have got their own army books and stuff, yeah? And I'm sure with them releasing Cafe in Warhammer Total War that they will. Maybe.
Yeah, that's a giant wink at see what's coming.
And it's also a way of bringing in, like, the China market, yeah, to bring them in. It's like when they released Tau, and it just coincided with when they started opening stores in Japan. But anyway,
but nobody likes Tau, so that's a backfire.
I know that's not true. But, there's Tau Nick on Tabletop Tactics, yeah.
Is there?
His nickname's Tau Nick. He's like one of the main guys on the channel.
I'm still not buying that anybody likes them.
But what was I saying? But yeah, it was but it was also like it's like some mystical far off land that no one knows about. There's only like little hints and there's not much that you hear from that far off mystical land, and for me, I liked that because it was like the world is still not fully discovered. Yeah, there's still areas of mystery and intrigue and things that we don't know about. And I kind of liked that. I kind of liked, we don't know about this far off land. And I liked it. I know you can say, oh, but what about the Lizardmen? But it's like, I've got the army book. It tells me all about it. Yeah. But I quite liked that there were some areas that were unexplored and hadn't come under the microscope, yeah. So
that's sort of like I am going to bring up the Muslim actually, but like the Southlands is they know roughly that there is some lizardmen there, but from Kemri down to like the Southlands, it's not really explained what's there. So, and then Lustria itself is not fully explored, and I think that's a pretty good choice.
Yeah, and the other thing as well, it's great when you're trying to come up with like armies or coming up with your own color scheme or whatever. So, when I did my first high elf army, not the one I've got now, but one I did years and years and years and years ago, I was like, I don't want to do an Ulfwin army. Yeah, I want to do one of these, colonies. So is it like the Tower of Dawn, Citadel of Dusk?
Oh yeah, they're great. They've got a great scheme as well. Is it the Citadel of Dusk on the Lustrian side?
Yeah, so Citadel of Dusk is like South Lustria, and then you've got the Tower of Dawn, which is at the south tip of the Southlands. Yeah, and then there's like the Tower of Stars, and there's like all these different like elvish colonies on these like islands dotted around the globe. And it was just like, yeah, because if you think about it, the Tower of Dawn is probably the closest place to the Southern Wastes, and the Southern Wastes just has the line, "Here be demons," and it's just like this continent, it's just got demons on it, yeah, because it's the Southern Pole, and it's just like you can just imagine that you've got this garrison of elves that deal with obviously trade ships going round the southern tip of the Southlands, between Araby and the Eastern Kingdoms, and so they're dealing with that, but they're also dealing with the fact that just across this narrow strip of water is an unlimited amount of demons.
It's quite grim, that actually.
Yeah, I think it's really cool, and I was like, it'd be really cool to do like a grim dark garrison that has to deals with these merchants and traders, but also has to deal with the fact that the enemy is there. I think it's quite cool.
Is there on when they did the old world map that we were talking about before? There is a like an island colony off the coast of Britonia that was the High Elf colony. So that now it's totally speculative, but are the High Elf involvement? If there's High Elf involvement in this game, are they just going to be like garrisons from outposts? They'll not be what's on Ulthuan. They'll be what's available to these garrisons. Who knows? I'm looking at the map now. Actually,
it's great. It's just I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
I'll agree with that one. So we've agreed with each other's choices then.
I think so far, I don't think we've got to the controversial ones yet.
I've got one that you'll probably say, well, how predictable. But anyway, my next choice then is the magic phase. Because it's great.
You know what? The magic phase is brilliant.
It's again because I'm a massive 8th edition fanboy, but it's the best version of the magic phase that they've done.
Ooh!
Yeah, fight me, 6th edition players.
Oh no, I don't know if I agree with this.
It's great.
I think it's great. I love the magic phase. I think it's fantastic. I don't know if it's the best version of it though.
I think it's such a simple change where they merged miscast and irresistible force. That was that 7th. I don't know.
No, that was in 8th as well. That was in 8th.
Was it just 8th though? Did 7th have that?
No, 7th was double 1 was a miscast,
right, yeah.
and double 6 was irresistible force. Yeah,
I think that sums. I so like that change because it's. I know it's obviously it combines the punishment with the reward, but the punishment is so ramped up in 8th as to what it was in. I remember in 6th, like you can't cast again, or He turns into a frog for a phase, and who knows? He points in a random direction. But no, and my favourite miscast table is Dimensional Cascade, because it just sounds like the previous one is Calamitous Detonation. Like, this is really bad. The next step down is it's just got this really nice technical term. It's a dimensional cascade. But what that really means is the realm of chaos has opened up where the wizard used to be and obliterated everything around the wizard in some sort of magical nuclear explosion.
Unless you got Banner of the World Dragon.
Unless you got Banner of the World Dragon, then they just shrug it off. But I just love that. Yeah, I need to get this spell off. I need a 6/6, but also the 6/6 could kill the most expensive thing, that single model that I'm fielding on this army. But the magic's just—it's so. In fact, I find the buffing and hexing spells more interesting even than the direct damage spells.
Yeah, I like the spell laws. I think the spell laws are fantastic. I like the miscast table. I like the 6/6 being combined with the 1/1. You know, I agree with all those changes. There is one bit of it that I do not agree with.
Oh, go on.
2d6 power dice, maximum of 12. And it's like, yeah, but what do I do in bigger games?
But didn't they change it to like the Cane Magic and Storm of Chaos rules is 4d6?
Well, I thought we said that end times wasn't.
No, what we said was that it was bullshit that Malekith was the true king.
Doesn't that happen in that same book?
There's bits of the book I'm fine with, like Setra telling the Chaos Gods to go fuck themselves. I think that's great.
But my point: how long after the game came out was end times? Like 7 years, 8 years?
7, yeah, I think. Yeah,
yes, 7 years. So, like, I know they did. Not Storm of Magic. Yeah. So it's like you could play a Storm of Magic game and you got 4d6 dice or whatever it was, right? But it was just like so long afterwards, and it was just like I found 2d6 just difficult to because I was like, you know, if I roll a 7 and I've got one wizard, I'm only casting like 2 spells, yeah, and it's just I found it.
But is it not sort of? It's supposed to sort of counterbalance the fact that the spells are
amazing,
really significant. Yeah,
yeah, and that's probably it. But you know, I kind of wanted, like, not kind of wanted, but I'm not saying I'd change it. I'm not saying I'd change it because I love it. You know, I think it's amazing, and I'll come around to other reasons why I completely agree with you. But it was just like, I think probably the thing that's making me bitter is probably one of the last armies I was playing in 7th for 22 casting dice. Yeah. like in turn, and it was just like, 22 casting dice, and it was like, right, the 8th book came out. I was like, right, great, I'll use the same army just to see how it plays. 2d6 dice. And I was like, what? I'm used to using 22. Like, where have my dice gone?
That's like the second generation Slan in 6th. He got a free dice to add to every roll, so he could just cast as much as he liked.
Yeah. I think overall, I think it's amazing. Like, overall, I love it. It's so good, in fact, that they tried to steal it and put it in 40k.
Well, yeah, but it's similar, but it's not exactly the same.
No, but I meant they had the...
They've got the psychic phase and stuff.
The psychic phase, and that wasn't a thing before. It was like, oh, we'll include this psychic phase that happens after movement, but before shooting.
Where did you get that idea from?
I was like, all right, yeah, you destroy this one game, and then you include one of the best bits of it in your other game.
I get it about it being quite limiting, the 2d6, because it's not. I've never found it really worth taking more than one level 4, because you might as well put all your dice through them.
Yeah, exactly. Rather
than spreading yourself over too many spells.
Yeah, and it was like I was talking. My mate, I said earlier on this episode that my mate's painting this Tzeentch army. And it's got all these horrors and heralds of Tzeentch, and he's got a big level 4, Lord of Change in it. And it was just like, yeah, all your dice are going to be going through your Lord of Change. Because he was like, oh, what spell should I get on this wizard, and what spell about this one? And I just said, there's no point making your heralds more than a level 1. And just take signature spell on all of them. And he was like, why? I said, because all your dice, no matter how many dice you get, they're all going to be going through your level 4. Yeah? It just doesn't matter what the other wizards have got.
What's your favourite spell?
Curse of the Leper.
It's typical Nurgle demon answer there, isn't it?
No, it's amazing because it's it's either Curse of the Leper or Drain Magic, which is the complete opposite.
Drain Magic's great.
I love them both because they're both a hex and an augment.
Yeah, but
it's just utility. It's like, I can negative your toughness by D3, or I can increase my own toughness by D3, or I can remove a spell from you, or I can remove a spell from me, and it's just Curse of the Leper. If I was going to put a gun to my head, is just amazing. Just love it. When is that not useful?
Just be careful in what order you cast Drain Magic, because if you've buffed up a unit, then you drain the magic. That's a rookie mistake that you never do again.
I'm going to cast Drain Magic on myself. What's that going to do? Nothing.
Yeah.
Why are you casting it? Because I get +1 ward save.
Yeah, so you get, and it's cheap. It's just such a
it's
cheap.
A 5 up to cast.
Yeah.
And I was playing my mate's Orcs once, and I was like, I'm going to AoE Drain Magic. Got it. And it was just like removed all his Orc buff spells, and Itchy Nuisance was gone, and Gork'll Fix It was gone. All these annoying fucking Orc and Goblin spells gone. So it's like, signature spell.
Well, one or two. Mine would be probably something I really like Enchanted Blades of Aeon.
Is that from Metal?
Metal. It's just a +1 to hit and armor piercing.
Fair.
Because it's.
But is that not useful?
It's like that is cast that anything. Archers, swordmasters, so they're hitting on 2s. What they're called, Hellblaster volley guns. There's nothing that can't be improved with a +1 to hit. It's great.
Yeah. Other ones that I really like, Ice Shard Blizzard.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic, and that's a signature.
Yeah. People argue that one of the most powerful spells in the game is, even though it's not it's a Forge World book, it was Ash Storm. Yeah.
Chaos Dwarf Magic's borderline broken.
But I think another one that I really like is Curse of Anra.
The dangerous terrain for everything one.
The dangerous terrain for everything on a 1 or a 2. I think it is, and it's just like you cast it on a big horde, and it's like, do you dare move?
That's a third of your army, possibly.
A third of your unit dead, takes a wound with no armor save. I just love it. It's great. It's like, do you really want to move that big block? No.
That was supposed to be like the counter to because everyone hordes, they're so powerful. Yeah, but a horde is a big target for some of these really, really powerful spells, and some of them aren't that expensive to cast. Like Final Transmutation, I think, is on a 15.
Yeah.
And that'll delete, on average, a third of your unit.
Mm-hmm.
So your horde is rapidly becoming less of a horde. And that's apparently supposed to be the counter to the in-game counter to the horde technique of horde use anyway, is that these spells are even more devastating to a concentrated block of 40 or 50 models.
Yeah, great, love it. Because there's so many benefits for taking a horde, so there's got to be ways of removing them other than taking a horde yourself.
Yeah. Because like you send, what's it called, Purple Sun through a horde.
Oh,
Depending on what it is, like if it's a, I don't know, orc, or if it's a undead horde, you're gonna
anything.
kill it. Anything.
Dwarves, orcs,
Dwarves,
lizardmen, ogres.
yeah.
It's horrendous. It's
And
absolutely horrendous.
and getting back to that double six mechanic, at this point you're now totaling up. Is it worth my wizard possibly being killed, but you can delete a significant chunk of the army, and that's probably a payoff that's worth it.
Yeah, I completely understand where you've gone with that, because I usually Warriors of Chaos for a long time on the tournament scene where you've played against them. I've taken Demon Prince of Nurgle, yeah? Haha, yeah, I'm one of those guys. And I was always...
The unbreakable, uncrumbling Demon Prince.
Yeah, the unbreakable, uncrumbling Demon Prince with a 1-up armor save, and everyone's on either 5s or 6s to hit him in combat because he's weapon skill 9 at -1 to hit.
Right.
It's like, and he gains wounds back in combat. It's like, and that's without the magic. But, I make him a level 4 wizard, and it was like, oh, do you take death or do you take Nurgle? And I found myself, I was like, oh, I'll go death, because then I can fly him up a line, and I can Purple Sun across an army, or I can throw him into combat, and then I can cast Purple Sun in the combat that I'm in, But then I found I was just like, well, to get Purple Sun, I need to double 6, usually, because otherwise they're going to dispel it. But I don't want to kill my 500-point model by miscasting, yeah?
Yeah.
So I found that I take Nurgle, the Law of Nurgle instead, and I think it's arguably better than taking Death Magic on him, because it makes him the unkillable Demon Prince even more unkillable.
That's like what I was saying. The buffing and hexing spells, I find them more interesting than the direct. Like, I'd never take Law of Fire, and probably the only spell in Law of Fire that I find interesting is Flaming Sword, because that +1 to wound roll. That's better to me than a 2d6 fireball.
I feel really bad for the Law of Fire. Like, if you look at artwork or game, like computer games that have been produced for Warhammer, it's always a fire wizard. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, he's cool. Yeah, but...
Oh, they're great in Total War.
They're great in Total War, they're amazing, but you can cast spells into combat. It's like, but in what that one where you fight loads of Skaven, or the role playing one that was on Warhammer Online, the trailer for it had a fire wizard, and it was like, look how cool he is. But I think I'm not saying it's a bad law, there's uses to it, but they're possibly... You could argue that they're the weakest out of the 8 laws of magic, yeah?
Yeah, and I think it's because
it's a shame.
It is all direct damage, which isn't, well...
Magic missiles or direct damage.
Which is the buffing spells of where it's at. But yeah, Magic Phase, that is my number 2.
I'm going to counter... Oh, before we go on to the Magic Phase, you heard that Graham on the channel always talks about how the reason he loves Warhammer is the chaos that can go on. Magic Phase is something that causes chaos. Absolute chaos.
It's ultimate high risk, high reward, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolute chaos. Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. I have tried playing games with no wizards. I use Khorne Demons on the channel, and it's just sad not skipping the Magic Phase.
I couldn't wedge a level 4 into this dragon off, but I've put a level 2 in because I can't not, even though I'll be outcasted and dispelled. But for the 1 or 2 spells I might get off, it's worth it.
Well, now he's taking a Manticore over a dragon. You could take a weaker dragon, which will give you points.
No. This prince would not ride anything less than a Star Dragon. That's beneath
Strength
him.
7, toughness 7 dragon. Yeah.
He's from Calador, so he wouldn't accept a lesser dragon. Say, what am I, a beggar? I don't go on a moon dragon. It's Star Dragon.
Star dragon all the way. I'm going to counter your magic phase with deployment and movement phase.
Ooh, controversial.
So I'll start with movement phase. The movement phase for me is the most important phase of your turn. You can royally screw yourself over in the movement phase. And your choices of your arcs, your line of sight, your reforming, how far close do you get to the enemy, how far back do you go, your which charges do you declare, do you want to flee as a charge reaction, do you want to stand and shoot? Well, if I flee with this unit, how is that going to impact my units behind? Is it going to cause fear? Is it going to cause panic tests? If I charge here, the opposite way around, then he could flee. How does that leave me exposed? Oh, well, if he flees, I can redirect into this one. But, it's all these different things. And it's the most crucial phase of the game, a phase of the turn. And I love it. I love it. I love the complications. I love all the strategy that has to go into it. Because combat's combat, shooting, you shoot. Yeah, you roll dice, you shoot. Combat, you fight. Yeah, combat's probably got a bit more than shooting because you declare challenges, you can make way. Which characters do you hit? Do you actually go to hit the characters? But with movement, there's so many different levels, so many different things you have to consider. I think I love it, and it's just because it's on square bases, because it's regiments, because it's wheeling, because you happen to swift reform and turn and move and all these things. It's because it's difficult. Because it's difficult is why I love it, and because it's more difficult than Age of Sigmar, it's more difficult than Warhammer 40k. I think that's one of the reasons why I love Warhammer. Playing the game of Warhammer so much is because of the difficulty level in it, and movement phase for me is games won and lost. Yeah,
it is quite satisfying when you've set something up in the movement phase that then pays off. What I mean, so if you've calculated, I can obliterate this unit in one turn and then overrun into another charge that I've declared, and that unit gets to fight again.
Yeah.
But it's such, and I like it, but I'm not as good at it as well. I wouldn't say you to big your ego up, but certainly Steve.
As I make myself out to be.
Yeah, but Steve, I played his Bretonians. I lost that in the minute. When I think back on it, I lost that in the movement phase and possibly even the deployment phase. And he just outmaneuvered me and dragged me into things that I shouldn't be doing. And get you out of line, get you flee past your lines. You rally, you're in no position to do anything because you're nowhere near where you need to be. Yeah, it can all go tits in the movement phase, and and it's very hard to recover when it does.
Yeah, and it's punishing, but I think that's why I like it, because you have to be on it, and you have to be adaptable. You have to adapt to how the opponent moves or their charge reactions, or how gung ho they might be. Because I've played against people, some more experienced people and some less experienced people, and they move completely differently. Yeah, it's like, oh, I didn't think you'd do that because, I would have done it this way, whatever. But games and won and lost on the movement phase more than anything. I feel, and to a lesser extent the deployment. Yeah, so I find the deployment phase or setup that hurts my brain the most. And James and I, like people who know James from his Orcs and Goblins on the channel, James and I have played each other dozens of times. Yeah, we know what all our units do. We know what will happen if this unit fights this unit. We know everything. We know all the different permutations of combat. Yeah, but because we know that, our deployment is much more crucial. And we played each other recently. I didn't record it because we were using some unpainted models. But I know.
We'll
I hate. I broke my own rule. No, what it was I'd forgotten my Illyrian Reavers and I'd left them at my house by accident, and he lent me some of his like Bretonnian squires, and I was like, I'm not even taking pictures of the game because there's Bretonians on this board. Yeah,
they have a big censored bar over them when they.
Yeah, I'm not even going to take pictures. It's just, I was like, if they die in the first couple of turns, then I'll start taking pictures. Yeah, because they won't be on the board. But they lived until like the end of the game, and I was like, how? They're Reavers. But it's
deliberately.
But yeah, but the we deployed, and after turn one, we both had one turn. James was like, I've lost this game. And we hadn't really rolled any dice or anything. And it was I kind of knew that I was just after the movement phase in turn one, that I was already had a huge advantage over him because of the way I'd deployed and the way I'd maneuvered in turn one, especially with like the Vanguard and then move and, other things. And James was like, I've deployed all wrong. And he knows his orcs, but he deployed wrong. He wasn't, obviously was out of practice and things like that. And just makes, deployment is crucial. It is crucial. And I think if I play Battle Line, I find deployment really stressful because how you deploy is up to you. I enjoy playing Dawn Attack because it's less your choice.
See, Dawn Attack is probably my favourite of the ones to roll. And a lot of that is the fact, well, there's nothing I could do about it.
but even when I played Graham on the channel recently, we rolled up Dawn Attack, and I was like, oh, in my back of my mind, I was thinking this is going to be a lot easier on my brain because, I'm not going to get to pick where I put my units. Like 5 out of the 8 units I had, I rolled a 6 for, which meant I get to choose where they go.
Which is really what you want.
It's what you want, but I didn't want that because I just wanted because my brain was started going, oh no, now you have to think, and I had to put them down, and I was like, Vanguard.
The agony of choice.
And I was like, I was, I didn't want it, but no, the deployment phase is the most stressful for me, and I think I love that because it tests me. The shooting phase doesn't test me, the combat phase doesn't test me, because at that point you're not making decisions, you're just rolling dice. Yeah, the majority of decisions are made in the deployment and movement phase. Yeah, and that's why I love him. I think it's great, and I wouldn't change him.
As I've talked about this battle loads of times. I'm probably bigging it up more than it was, but I really enjoyed it. That tournament I went to in Worcester where I played the Dark Elves, and that was a White Lion horde I had, and he had a Witch Elf horde with a cauldron, and that was the movement was keep my horde away from that because I don't think they win that fight with the volume of attacks, poison, stuff like that. So keep that away from that while trying to get into the rest of the army, and that was really fun and challenging. Like it was like trying to keep these 2 bricks away from each other and into the other stuff while trying to protect my other stuff and my horde from this choppy up witch elf thing. So that was more a battle in the movement phase because they never fought each other. There was like keep away from here, make sure they're not pointing there, try to bait them out and charge something else, flee. That was an intense movement phase from what I remember.
Yeah, and you remember it.
Yeah.
and it's just like I remember I went to a tournament and I was playing against an Orc and Goblin player again, and he had two squid gobblers, yeah. And
Funny, just mentioned, I've just watched that battle report where the guy you were playing had one of them.
James, it will be James. Yeah. They're tough. They're really tough. Yeah.
It's because you said that can't be the rules. That doesn't make any sense.
I was right.
Yeah. They don't get thunderstorm.
No, I was like, is it a war machine? Is it a monster? Make your choice. Yeah.
The rules are right though. 3d6 attacks.
3d6 attacks at strength 5. It's like, what? You're supposed to be a war machine. Well, I think again. Sorry, and it's not. This is not an attack on James, but
Nobody's watching this. You can attack who you like.
But it's like people are watching. But it's like Hell Cannon. Yeah, Hell Cannon's not a war machine. It's not It's monsters and handlers. Yeah, it's got a very specific rule set because it's monsters and handlers. Yeah, and as a chaos player, I should know that. I play the army. I should know that that's that. And I'm trusting the other person to know what their rules are. And going back to this conversation we're having earlier, I'm trusting that person. But when they come out with some ludicrous thing like that, it's like, hold on a second. Sorry. let's go back. And the other thing we found out, not in that game, but the next game we played, is it should be on a square base and not a oval base. Because there's obviously a lot of janky things you can do if you charge war machines.
You can point it any way you like.
Yeah, but because it's on a square base, you can't because it's a monster. It's not a war machine. Yeah, so it does have fronts and arcs and all this stuff. So you do have to be quite careful with it. But anyway, this guy had these two squid gobblers, and they are lethal. They are for 120 points. I'd always take 2. Yeah, I would take 3, but they're a rare choice, and you can't. So I'd always take 2 for 120 points. They're amazing, and he had 2 of them, but they've only got a 24-inch range, and he sat them right in the center of his deployment zone in the center of the board. Pitch battle, and it basically created this 24-inch zone of death, right? And I was like, I don't want to go anywhere within 24 inches of the middle of the board. So how can I get round that? Yeah. And what I had to do was, through deployment and movement, I had to taunt, because he's not Skaven, he can't shoot into combat. I had to kind of taunt his units out so I could then charge into them and then overrun into the stuff behind, and therefore not take so much fire. So I had to get through this 24-inch zone of death through use of movement, and going back to the whole movement phase being amazing. The movement phase won me that. Yeah, I can't go. When someone says you can't go within 24 inches of the center of the board, how are you going to win? Well, yeah, you're going to have to maneuver your way to victory somehow. Yeah, so it's movement phase. There you go.
Finesse. It's all about that. Well, my next one is sort of connected to that. It's I've written how complicated the game is, because I really like that, and it's not complicated in the 40k sense that the rules don't.
The rules change every week.
Well, yeah, they change every week, and you've got to take 3 books to get all, unless you've got a 9th edition book. You've got to take the Society Awakening, the Army book, and the rule book, and the errata and the FAQs. And the scoring system is like a nightmare. I really don't like the way that 9th edition 40k scores. But like you're saying, there are defined arcs that these your blocks of infantry follow. They can only look a certain way. They can't charge different ways. There's no 360 line of sight. All these special rules are documented in the rule book, and they all do separate things, which you expected to know. They all interact with each other. And I've got not a photographic memory for it, but for some reason I tend to retain rules quite well. So to me, it's not complicated in the sense that I can't follow it. It's like a really satisfying level of complication. And that, right, that's got always strikes first, but that's got always strikes first, so I know that they strike at the same time. It's not in initiative order. That's got large targets, so I know that it's got an 18-inch. All these little different rules are interacting with each other, and it's more than just like in 40k. It's different ways of saying the same thing. Like they've all got different reroll one aura. It's just got 5 different names, whereas fantasy's got 5 different rules attached to each unit that you've got to look up. But then the more you use it, the more you get to know it, and I just like knowing an obscene amount of complicated rules. That's just satisfying to me.
I think it is definitely complex. It's like there is a lot of levels of complexity to it. I'm not saying other games don't have levels of complexity to them, but having worked for Games Workshop previously, is those who listened to our last episode would know.
Yeah, all 3 of the people will know that.
Trying to teach brand new people Warhammer Fantasy is harder than teaching someone Lord of the Rings or Warhammer 40k.
How many times in an intro game do you have to say, you can't do that?
I try not to. I try not to say it. Yeah. I used to make up rules all the time in intro games, yeah? Because the rules aren't important. The rules aren't important in an intro game. The whole point of an intro game is to sell the game. It's to sell the hobby. That's the point.
That's why I probably couldn't be employed by them back then anyway, because it'd be like, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. The rules clearly say you're not able to do this.
No, but that's what beginner Sundays are for. But it's like, now you're in the hobby. No.
Yeah, no, all that stuff that lured you in, you can't actually do it.
No, but yeah, I used to make up stuff all the time, but it's just about making the game fun, because they might only have 10 minutes. Yeah, they might only have 15 minutes.
I mean, intro game wasn't really what I meant. But,
yeah, but you know what I mean.
Said,
but yeah, teaching someone
get out of the shop.
but teaching someone how to play Warhammer is like, all right, so this is how you move. Oh, and then you have to wheel like this, and then you why can't I move just right? Oh no, you can't, because you have to do a swift reform, and then you can't march that way. You have to only be able to move 4 inches that way.
You've got a test to move at all, so be very sure that you want to do this.
It's like my unit's within 8 inches of yours, and therefore you have to take a march test. Oh no, but you're playing dwarves, and then therefore you can just do it anyway. And it was just like all these things but that's just that, and then. If you just
I love all that. It should just be a clanking mass of nonsense and grinding contradictory rules, but it's not. It works really smoothly for me anyway.
It does. It's just, I'm just saying, it is. I completely agree with you. It is complex because of how you just think about how difficult it is to teach someone it. It's complex. Yeah.
They sort of admit that in the rule book as well. It's like, here's the simple rules. If you first couple of times read these, don't bother with what's coming next.
What's coming next?
And then the next third to 2/3 of the book is what's coming next.
Well, no, I think it's brilliant, but even like the combat, so it's just like, I have to match your weapon skill to your weapon skill, and then you roll and that's right. So you've hit them, and you think to yourself, if I hit someone with an axe, it's gonna hurt them. Oh no, it will only hurt that person if it's like man versus man. Both strength 3, toughness 3. It's like, I've just hit that guy with an axe. Yes, well done. But only 50% of the time is it actually going to hurt them. What? It's like easy. You roll with dice. Yeah, okay, now you've hurt them. And now you have to roll for armor save.
Yeah. Wait, you stand by. You haven't got through the armor yet.
No. It's funny. It's funny, it all makes sense to us gamers, yeah? But trying to teach someone that, it's quite difficult. Yeah.
I think that's also nice because people seek it out. Like people who still play it have made a conscious choice to go for it because I think a lot of people go for it because it's like that. It is a bit more complicated. There is a bit more to do with it. It's certainly one of the reasons I like playing it.
And this is a completely different thing, but I was just talking about rules there that don't really make sense. Yeah, I completely agree with those rules, but you can see why they don't make sense. And when I used to play 40k, I had a unit. I used to have Blood Angels army, right? And I had a unit of Terminators in them, and I gave them all. They were all helmetless. They all just had bare heads. People were like, that makes no sense. Why would a Terminator go into combat with no helmet on? What if he gets shot in the head? And I'm like, yeah, that represents his 1 in 6 chance of dying. Yeah. He's got, because he's got a 1 in 6 chance of you hit him in the head, 1 in 6 chance of you hit him in the arm, and he's fine.
So if you put his helmet on, he'd have a 0 chance of dying.
Yeah, if they had helmets on, they'd be completely fine. They'd never die. It's just silly things like that,
but they keeps things that that you forget, like units with flaming weapons cause fear in cavalry. Like that makes complete sense, and it's a little tiny little thing that I don't think.
You know what? I completely forgot about that rule.
Yeah, there's loads of them like that, just little bits and pieces like that. And however sad this is, but I do like reading the fantasy rulebook just for no particular reason, just to go through the special rules and stuff.
Yeah, well, why not? Like, I find myself always forgetting fast cavalry rules, or because there's so many, or skirmishing rules, or
skirmishes. Yeah,
and it's just like, what does that do again? What's that? It's
and
like,
there's as well. There's the thing with fantasy, because there's so many rules. There's a tendency to merge them with previous editions.
Yeah.
And things like, for example, characters have 360 field of vision in 6, I think, and they can turn anywhere in charge. They can't do that in 8. Like, I'm sure you could do this. Like, no, you can't. That's a previous edition's rules. And I mean, that's just an occupational hazard of playing a game with that's existed for that long with so many different iterations of the rules.
Yeah, it's. I was going to say something poignant, but don't matter.
But even in army building, it's like you have to take your point limit, and then you have to divide it into a percentage and take minimums of that.
No. That is so much more. That is so much easier than building an army in 40k. I'm sorry. Detachments, command points. Like, but if you take this detachment, then you lose command points. What? Can't I just take 2 troops in 1 HQ and then build stuff around the rest of it? Thank you. No. If you take this detachment, then you have to have a minimum of this, and then if you do this, then you have to have this, and it's just like, no.
It took me about 6 months to work out what Battle Forged meant.
What? Yeah, like what the fuck? It's like, I was just like, which, I said to my mates, I was like, I'm gonna, because some of them play 40k. I was like, you know what? I don't like painting with unpainted models, yeah. So I'm gonna paint my army first, and then I'll come along and play a game. And they're like, yeah, but what if your army's not legal? And I was just like, how can it not be? I'm gonna paint a couple of units of Marines and a couple of characters, and so it's like, oh yeah, well you have to take this detachment then, and blah blah blah. And I was just like, what? Like, I just want to play, play a game. It's just like, so I think 25%, 50% is so much easier than 40k. I don't even know what the rules are for taking Age of Sigmar. I presume you just take anything you want.
I don't know. I have a difficult relationship with Age of Sigmar.
Well, no, complex.
No, that's a good thing. I have a difficult relationship. I don't dislike 40k, but it's. I know why they've gone to speed the game up. They simplified it, so it's now you hit on your to hit roll doesn't change. It's in your profile. You hit on a 2-up, and to me, that, like, if a lord is fighting a lord, the comparison of weapon skill makes sense because they're highly skilled, so they're not going to be both hitting each other easily. It should depend, they're going to be parrying and whatever. But I get it; they want to speed the game up. So
I get it for ballistic skill. I don't get it for weapon skill. Yeah, I get it for ballistic skill because you've got a gun. Yeah, no, it's like, but no, it's I watch 40K, as I said. I watch it on Tabletop Tactics. Not the Tabletop Tactics. I try watching it on Tabletop Tactics, but those guys go way over my head. 40K in 40 minutes or whatever. Play on tabletop, that's what they're called. And it's like, but then when they start going, and then I took this relic, which is -1 command point. And it's just like, and then if I do this, then it was also -1 command point because I took this warlord trait or whatever. And it's just like, what?
The problem with 40K, which you can't really do with fantasy, is when you start getting like stratagem runs. And like, I play this so you can't Overwatch, and I play this so I'm plus 10 strength, so I play this so you don't get invulnerable save, so I play this so I'm now it's 5 damage, so I play this. So it's like, that's too much. That stratagems, I quite like them, but when you start piling them on, and like, so this means I just have to stand here and get my entire army obliterated, and there's literally nothing I can do about it. Yeah, that's what that means.
Yeah,
that's not complicated. That's just piling stuff on one thing on top of another.
But no, I do like the complexity, and I think that goes back to why I probably like movement the most, is because of the complexity of movement.
It's probably the most complicated phase. But there's all the other like ancillary stuff, like psychology and stuff, which is pretty unique to fantasy, I think. Now, anyway,
definitely, yeah.
Like, there's all sorts of different, they're representing different things that can happen to the tutors. They can suffer fear, which is different to terror. They can panic for various different reasons. Having their own units flee through them causes them to panic. And like, this is really, for what it's trying to represent of linear tactic warfare, this is all really good. And I enjoy that extra layer to it. You haven't just lost, you don't just roll a dice and like one more person runs off. Like the whole unit runs, and then everyone who saw it run, oh fucking hell, we're out of here. And then that's when your line starts coming, and you start going, Jesus, how do I recover this?
Yeah, completely agree. Love it.
Complexity.
This is I think but what you were just saying there leads on nicely to my next one.
It's almost like we planned this, but we didn't.
We didn't. Is my favorite thing. One of my favorite things is ranked up units, ranked up armies, and also the battle artwork. Yeah. So I love seeing ranked up units. And if like hordes, I think hordes look brilliant. If it's a fully painted horde, it looks brilliant. Especially if you're playing against Skaven or Orcs or whatever, and they've got multiple hordes next to each other. It's just like, I don't care how hard that is. It looks awesome. Yeah, and you look at the artwork, hundreds of different artwork, and you see these big, huge lines of thousands of creatures or monsters or men of the Empire charging into each other or whatever. That's what I want to see on the tabletop. That's what I want to be able to recreate. Stick them on square bases. Let's see some ranked up units. It looks amazing.
Yeah, and I fully agree.
You're talking about your units crumbling, your whole unit running away, and then things like people chasing them down and stuff. Yeah, I just think
it's got a psychological impact as well, isn't it? If someone puts down a 100 clan rat strong unit, so 100 Skaven slave unit, like, right, how do I deal with that? That's a problem, and it looks like it's now taking up big chunks of the battlefield with these units. Like, if you're especially if you play an elite army, if you're an elite army and you've got a full unit of like not chaff, but tar pit units, like, what am I going to do about this? The whole opposite side of the field is now just full of stuff that I've got to deal with.
Yeah, there's just something about, like I've got like my shelves of miniatures behind me, and I've got my Space Marines on their shelf, and they're all there, and they look cool, yeah. But then if I look at my shelf with all my Chaos Warriors are on, and they're all in their like big movement trays, and they're all ranked up, and there's like 50 warriors, and there's like another 50 warriors, and then there's like 50 marauders, and another, and then beneath them on the other shelf there's like 50 plague bearers and like 50 bloodletters, and they're all ranked up and painted. That just looks a million times better. Yeah. And
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, the 40k is probably better painted on an individual model level because I spend more time on them. But this is something, it gets you in the feels, because when you're a kid and you're watching movies, you're watching, whether you're watching Lord of the Rings or whether you're watching Gladiator or even the old Sword and Sandal epics. If you're watching El Cid, which is one of my favorite historical films, it's awe-inspiring. It gets you. It's what you want to see, and
it does replicate like what they're going for, and that it's supposed to be. It's not a skirmish. It's supposed to be tactical.
It's not a skirmish game. It's a
No.
battle game.
Yeah.
And Warhammer Fantasy Battles. They released a completely different game called Warhammer Skirmish or whatever they wanted. Warhammer Fantasy Skirmish, Mordheim, whatever. Right? Warhammer Fantasy Battles. I want to play battles. I don't want to play a game with 20 models. Yeah.
But it looks good when they come together as well. You got you Skaven, well, what you had with the Storm Vermin and the Bell, and they're fighting the forlorn hope of whatever's charging into it. Yeah, it looks good. It feels good as well when you've painted a brick of, let's take it, for example, 38 White Lions, L'Ariel, and a Banner of World Dragon. That just it's quite satisfying to see it all ranked up after you've painted it.
Yeah, like I recently painted 40 Dark Elf Crossbowmen, yeah? And I painted them 10 at a time. And when I painted the first 10, it was like, great, 10 look cool, whatever. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I wasn't happy until I'd painted all 40, I did them in batches of 10, and they were all in their movement trays, and they were all next to each other, because they're in these little 10 5x2 movement trays. And then I put them all together in one big block. I was like, this now looks awesome.
Yeah. Who cares how practical it is? We feel
this 40 man unit of crossbows.
The column of crossbowmen. You're fine.
Well, no, honestly, I like.
But you're saying the art? You mean like the is it like the? Well, how is it?
Well, like if you look at like the front of the Islands of Blood. Or,
the Islands yeah.
Or
they used to be on the front, didn't it? Like the
on the front of the box, yeah.
They used to be depicted in art on there.
Yeah, or even, but if you've got the big hardback Warhammer rulebook, yeah, if you open that up and they've got some of the set pieces that they've done with the miniatures, it's just incredible. It's just wow, and it's like that's what I want to play. I want to play that game, yeah. That's what I want to play. And it just, yeah, I can't emphasize how you look at the, I think it was like the front of the Islands of Blood, or the one before that was a Battle for Skull Pass, with the dwarves and the Skaven, or dwarves and the orcs and goblins, or even if you go back to the one which had, the high elves and orcs and goblins, I think it was like the Grom the Paunch invasion. There was that one. And Bretonian and Lizardman, all
the
those
famous Bretonio Lizardmanish conflict of whatever that was.
Yeah, but if you look at the box art and you go, that looks cool. Yeah, I want to play that. Yeah, and ranked up units are the only way to go for me.
I think they I mean, I like photographing stuff like a weirdo, but I think it photographs really well as well. because you can get the overall, like the panned out shot where you see where everything is, and then you can go for the close ups where everything's fighting, and the skirmish level stuff. It does look good in close up when you pan out, unless you're using tanks and stuff. It's not really so clear.
Yeah,
But it looks like yeah. There's the army as you would see it, as if you were coming on the battlefield, and there it is all arrayed. And like, yeah, this looks really good. This is exciting.
yeah, and it's like if you watch people play like a 10,000 point game, yeah, and they send
Which
the
we have
pictures.
done. I've done.
I haven't done that. I haven't been with you guys when you've done that, but play like a 10,000 point game. That looks better to me than a 10,000 point game of Warhammer 40k. Because, sue me, yeah, but usually in a 10,000 point game of Warhammer 40k, someone's just got a big Titan that stands in the corner and just stands there all game, and you just roll dice for it. Yeah.
Well, the one have I done? I think I've been to two of them, but one of them, the entire length of this church hall is just filled with a table, and it's a proper battle. The entire thing is just taken up with troops and maneuver, and you've got one long battle line, and it is a really good. For some reason, the fantasy rules they scale up really well, except the magic, as you were saying. But you can compensate for that in whatever way. So even at 10,000 points, it's not unwieldy. Whereas when we played, I don't know how big it was. It was an Armageddon game years ago, and it took forever to do a turn and a half. And I was Tyranids, and I was out of the game by, turn two.
It sounds like Tyranids.
Yeah, it's blam, pie plate, dead. Next, all your units are dead. You can go up the bar. You can sweep up. You're in charge of packing the models back up.
It's like I remember like Tyranids and Apocalypse. This is years and years and years and years and years ago, and they gave him that rule where it was like never-ending swarm. So if your unit died, you just bring it back on. And it's just like I found that because I think I played Tyranids, around about that time as well, and it was just like it was really demoralizing taking off like 60 Hormagaunts or Termagants and then putting them back on, only to take them back off again.
Not only is it demoralizing, it's a massive time sink. So I've got to move these from here, these 60 rolls from here to here, and then off the table, then from here to here, then off the table.
It's like, yeah. Nah. It's like only works, that rule, only works if they also run out of ammunition. Yeah? Which they don't.
See, that's why I like knights. 3 models done.
Yeah, like what? Like I was, 40k bashing. No.
Yeah, sorry, I've been exceptionally harsh on this on 40k. I do like 40k, but yeah, fantasy's better. So ranked up armies, fully agree.
Yeah.
Except where they don't rank up properly. Just something you have to deal with. So, as is traditional, we have ran out of time, which happened the last time you were on the podcast, I think, and probably every time that everybody's been on this podcast. So, we'll leave it there. Will you come back on next time to see out the concluding part of this episode?
Yeah, of course. Can't get enough.
Well, can't say fairer than that. Right, see you on the next one.